In this video, we are going to talk about TryParse. So TryParse is basically used in converting certain data into another data. However, if the conversion fails, it will not raise an exception. Unlike to your parse method that we have used in video 10, supplying a value that is non-convertible will raise an error. But using TryParse, converting any data going to another type of data will not raise any error. If the conversion was processed successfully, it will return a Boolean value of true. Otherwise, it will return false. For us to try how to use the TryParse method, let's open our Visual Studio and create a sample project. I have already created a new project, so this time let's try using the TryParse method. So I'm going to create here a variable, an integer variable. Let's say int x is equals to 0. And then I'm going to request my user to type his input. So let's use console right line. Then we'll state here enter a number. And then we will use the console.read line. And then we will write here x is equals to int.parse. Okay, so there you go. For now, let's just use parse. Then after completing this example, let's try using the TryParse. Okay, so let's give this a try. But before that, let's write here the console.read line. Okay, so let's run the program. Okay, so I have should be capital L. Okay, so let's enter a number here. Let's say 8, and then there's no error. What we have written here is that we created a variable x here with an initial value of 0, and then we displayed a text on our screen telling our user that he has to enter a number, and then requesting the user to enter something, and that value will be stored in our x. But of course, we have to make a way of reading the input as integer. And for us to do that, we have to use the parse method of our integer data type. And then, after the user gives us his input, we will write here you entered, then the placeholder, and then followed by our variable. Okay, then let's give this a try. So let's give this a 10, and then you entered 10. Okay, that's correct. And then let's try giving it a different input. Let's say M. Okay, so there you go. We have an error because our variable was defined as integer, but what we did, we gave it a value of M. And M is non-convertible when we talk about integer, because there's no way for us to convert letter M into a number. So that is why it raises an error. So for us to handle this problem, we will replace our parse with TryParse. To do that, I'm going to comment this out, and then I will state here int.TryParse, and then console.readline, and then followed by out x. Okay, there you go. So this is how you will write and use your TryParse. So TryParse is a method of integer, but basically it is also available to other data types. TryParse is also available in decimal, in double, and other data types. But for this case, what we want to happen here is that when our user enters something, we will try to read that as integer. And if the reading fails, then we will tell the user that his input is not a valid input. And then what is the out here? Out meaning whatever input that our user gives us, that input will be copied to our X. So this is what we call a reference variable. So a parameter by reference. Later in our succeeding videos, we will talk about parameter by value and parameter by reference. But for this case, whenever we use out, we are stating that this is a reference variable. So whatever the result from our read line, if the conversion is successful, it will be stored in our X. But if not, then it will give us a value false. And that false value will stay on this variable. So let's have a Boolean variable here. Let's say result. If the conversion is successful, the result will contain a value of true. But if not, if the conversion is false, then the result will contain a value of false. So let's give this another line here. Let's say if result is true, we will state here console, you entered whatever the value of x. Else, we will state here you entered an invalid value. So there you go. Let's give this a try. But before that, let me explain again everything. We created a variable x. We created a variable result as boolean, and then we requested our user to enter something, and then that input will be read as integer. But if it fails, our result here will contain false. But if the conversion is successful, then it will return true to our result. It will give our result a value of true, and then copying that value to our x variable. Then if the result is true, if our variable result contains a true value, then it will display you entered whatever the value of the x. However, if not, then it will display you entered an invalid value. Okay, so let's give this a try. Let's try 10. You entered 10. Okay. Let's try a different value. Let's say apple. Okay, you entered an invalid value. Okay, so that's how your TryParse works. Okay, so that's all for this video, and then see you in the next lectures.